Okay, but let me push you on this. So far, you've been telling me all the things that you wouldn't do.
Yeah.
I'm going to really push you to say, now, Rohit, you have to gun to head build something.
Yep.
Right? Where do you see the optimism? Where do you see the opportunity? And again, let's stick to building for India.
Yeah. So if I'm building for India, right? Like we spoke about a bunch of things with like CareStack, right? So one of the interesting things that came out from our conversation was this idea of like dental support organizations.
Yeah.
Right. So this entire industry that's built to actually help dentists set up their practices.
Yeah.
Right. And operate better. There's something like that exists in India. Right. And this is something I think people would actually end up paying money for because hey, it's almost like an investment that someone's actually making to actually end up growing their practice. Right. And as long as you have a good product over there, that's something people would potentially pay money for. It feels a lot more servicey, and that's okay for me. The other things that I find quite interesting are, hey, like all these like is there a Darby equivalent distributor to actually end up supplying to all these like medical for all these like dental support organizations and so on and so forth? I feel like it's still very much like very offline. You don't really hear about it, or at least I don't really hear about any big players in this space. But that ecosystem does exist, right? Is there a way by which you can actually build in that ecosystem and actually solve for a lot of problems that do end up existing there? Again, the business, the model, everything like that already exists, but can you actually end up creating that better mousetrap? And the other thing that I would almost end up doing, right, and we see companies like Clove doing it, is actually setting up a chain of dental clinics, right, and keeping it very sort of premium, creating that entire brand around it. Again, something I'm super bullish on because people do need to go to the dentist. People will end up spending money for that, right, and a significant amount of money for that. Can you end up being that place that people actually end up going to actually get their teeth clean, so those are the areas. I just feel like if you're building in India, it's almost like software has to be additive to something foundational that you're actually improving. And
interesting how we see a hierarchy of needs. There's selling software, there is processing insurance claims, there is being the dental support organization, and then there's just being the freaking dentist.
Yeah.
So we've almost moved from like figuring out how to sell to the customer to being that customer.
Yeah.
But the last bit is also interesting because I was, as you were speaking, I was looking this up. 99% of dentists in India are in tier 1 cities because dental care is something that's almost, I wouldn't say good to have, but it's something that the more rich folks invest in.
Yeah.
And India does have a need for this because it's not just a cosmetic thing. Apparently 90% of the adult population is affected by periodontal disease. Folks traditionally chew tobacco. It causes oral cancer if you don't have that hygiene. So it also feels like if India is going to become a rich country over time, this is necessarily going to happen. So for someone who's perhaps listening to us, who's thinking on a decade-long horizon, there could be like a standard, you talk about premium dental clinics. There could be a Tesla-like strategy to start from the top. And then there is wide demand, especially with healthcare. Yeah. That's the one thing that, especially as the government starts providing guaranteed health insurance, as is happening with a lot of the recent schemes, if they open up an opportunity for private care, healthcare is one of those things where again, speculatively, I think that the bottom of the stack in India could also be an interesting market to target. Yeah. If in fact the government enables private enterprise to enter, which could all of a sudden create a huge setup if the government becomes the payer. So maybe for someone out there listening, this could be an interesting
So there are a lot of these government schemes and so on that are out there. And I know this primarily because of my wife more than anything else. From what I can tell, the healthcare facilities, be it hospitals or any of these kinds of centers, need to end up accepting these government schemes and you end up getting a lot of volume. But oftentimes, like getting paid back, it takes a long time.
Hey, revenue cycle management.
I know it is, but it's also like, the rates are a lot lower, so on and so forth. So see, do I think there's a market? Absolutely. Right. Yeah. Specifically in like single specialty clinics, be it like dental clinics, derma clinics, just focus on one specialty and go really, really deep. Focus on like India 1, then go to India 2, then go to the tier 3 cities and tier 2 cities. It's there, right? There's probably a lot of money folks can actually end up making doing that. Yeah.
This is a very different, where we've gotten to is a very different business than selling software.
I know. It's something that I've never done before. So I'm not going to claim to be an expert or anything with that. But if you look at like the really, really successful businesses in India, right, they're solving the like hard operational problems. Yeah. Even Zomato, for example, like you think about Zomato as Zomato.com, but really that's just a sliver of their business, right? There's so much underneath it, the entire delivery fleet, Hyperpure, like servicing the restaurants. It's a very, very operationally complex business, right?
Yeah.
Most of them. So You just have to be ready for it.
Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do like and subscribe.